What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan with Astrodfs bringing you another video going over the running backs for Week 9's Sunday main slate. We finally don't have a running back at 10,000 because Christian McCaffrey is possibly coming back. For some reason, when he was injured, he was always 10,000, but he's 8,500 now. Possibly might be back against Kansas City. If he's back, this is probably the cheapest we're going to see him unless he gets hurt again. But this is going to be the cheapest we see him if he does come back. At 8,500, I mean, the guy, what he did last year was phenomenal. What he did this year until he got hurt was great. So right off the bat, we're definitely going to watch to make sure that he's going to be in for the game. If he is, definitely going to have a lot of interest there, even though it's not the best game script for him. But it's Christian McCaffrey. They consistently give him the ball. So definitely going to look at that. Next is the legend, Dalvin Cook, who just had one of the best games we've seen from a running back in quite some time. 163 rushing yards, 63 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns. 51 fantasy points. Wouldn't have expected it against Green Bay. Just thought that Green Bay was pretty much going to pound on Minnesota and they'd have to pass the ball a lot. So, that didn't happen. So, Dalvin Cook against Detroit, another divisional game. Another game where he's set to exceed at 8,200 definitely has my attention there. Would be perfectly fine paying for him at 8,200. Being home at that, the weather looks good for right now. So he's an option there. Derrick Henry against Chicago against my Bears. Although it's hard to say for a running back to go off against the Bears with how hurt the Bears are just offensively now. And what I mean by hurt is they're going to be missing 3 offensive linemen. That offense still can't score. Tennessee's going to get the ball a lot, and Derrick Henry gets attempts a lot. If it's a close game, he's going to consistently be involved. So 7,900, the volume is definitely going to be there against Chicago. It's just the production is what you're worried about for paying 7,900. There's a lot of great matchups this week, so you don't have to take Derrick Henry this week. Something that's interesting to me is James Robinson. I picked him up in almost every fantasy league as soon as I can after week 1 against the Colts. He had 16 rushing attempts for 62 yards and a 28-yard catch. It's 10 fantasy points, but what Jacksonville did week 1, I mean, was unreal. They knocked off the Colts, and they've been playing some pretty close football for the most part. Putting up points, you would think a team that's tanking wouldn't do that, but they're playing not so bad offensively, and James Robinson is definitely included in that. He is yet to put up a performance under 10 points. And for a guy that started off the season at 4,000, he's all the way up to 7,000 here, and a great game script for him against Houston. Minshew is not going to be in, so Robinson is going to get a lot, and I mean a lot of volume here, whether it be rushing attempts and or targets. He's going to get a lot. Also, Thompson's going to get a lot. So at 7,000, he's probably one of my favorite running backs so far this week. And right below him is James Conner against Dallas. The game total's not what you would feel confident with, but how bad Dallas's offense is and how hurt they are and all that. Dallas has one of the worst defenses in the league. And I think that got overlooked against Philly with how hurt they are, but they're going to be playing the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers with Big Ben Roethlisberger. James Conner is healthy. At 6,900, playing against one of the worst defenses in the league and worst rush defense in the league, 6,900, I love James Conner this week. Definitely going to have him in lineups all over the place. Chase Edmonds, 6,800. I think he's just too expensive for my liking. I do like that he's going to get a lot of looks. You look at what he did against Seattle. put up 21.5 fantasy points, which is amazing. Drake's not going to be there, so there's not that much volume to get stolen from him other than Kyler Murray. But at 6,800, there's just other price points that I want to get to with a little better matchups than Chase Edmonds this week. Mike Davis, if McCaffrey's not in, Mike Davis at 6,700 is at a fairly good price point. I like it. I like running backs. You look at what he's done the last 2 weeks. I think this might be his last opportunity for a good volume. So, if there's a team to do it against, Kansas City's rush defense has gotten a little better, but with how reliant Carolina is with running backs, he could have one good last game before McCaffrey fully takes over. So just have to watch the McCaffrey news. If he's in, I wouldn't go anywhere near Mike Davis at 6,700. McCaffrey's out. It's worth a look or two. Ezekiel Elliott, I don't even know if I want to talk about him just because, Dallas they scored 22 points since Dak's been gone. That's how bad they are. So, definitely not on my radar. Chris Carson, just have to watch the injury report. I'm pretty sure all the running backs are pretty banged up in Seattle right now, so definitely going to have to look at that. They're in a decent matchup against Buffalo. I like the running backs for targets, receptions, not as much as rushing yards, so I just going to have to watch injuries there, but they're not high on my list as of right now. Josh Jacobs, 6,300 against the Chargers, and we know how, I've talked about it, of how bad both defenses are, especially the Chargers defense, and just how much points they give up, especially late in the game. We look at someone like Josh Jacobs, who just gets 31 carries against Cleveland last week. Granted, it was a low-scoring matchup, so you expect something like that, but this is a really good week for him. I think he's at a really good price point at 6,300. That's kind of where you want him to be at in a game script like this. If he was at about 7,000 or more, I wouldn't have as much attention towards him. But 6,300, I think, is a very good price point for me to take some looks at Josh Jacobs. Todd Gurley against Denver, I don't like it just because Denver has a good defense, and it's just hard to take someone like Todd Gurley, although he is the league leader in rushing attempts in the red zone. If Atlanta gets to the red zone, then yeah, he'll definitely get his attempts. He always does. Probably get a touchdown. And he's just playing really good football. It's nothing against Todd Gurley, just how good Denver's defense is. So probably going to stay away from Todd Gurley for the most part. Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Le'Veon Bell, I like them this week against Carolina. Edwards-Helaire, I think, is set up for a really good game here. Carolina's pass defense is fairly good. I don't think they're going to stop Kansas City's high-powered offense, though. But Edwards-Helaire is definitely set up for a lot of good rushing attempts with how good Kansas City's pass game is. So, like Edwards-Helaire, I think he's at a very fair price point, 6,100. So, depending on all the factors that's going to including Christian McCaffrey, I'm going to have some Edwards-Helaire looks all week. The situation with the Indianapolis Colts running backs, I just don't like them. I just don't like Phillip Rivers. I can't ever trust him. I don't know why. Just can't ever trust him. So, staying away from them. Gibson against the Giants. I like him for his rushing attempts. He's not included in the pass game much of all. They get McKissick in there for the most part, so not on Gibson. David Montgomery, I'm a Bears fan, and yet again, it's hard to say I don't want a Bears player to exceed, but the Bears just can't run the ball. They're going to be down 3 offensive linemen. They're already down 2 offensive linemen, so it's going to be a terrible time for the Bears offense. So I'm going to stay away from Montgomery, although it is a fairly good game script for a running back against Tennessee. I'm just going to stay away from him. David Johnson at 5,600. He's put up pretty consistent numbers around there. Like, look at his numbers. Ceiling is 19. Floor is 7. That's where he's at this season. His price has, stayed the same as well. Played Jacksonville once this season. And, Houston won 30-14. Almost had 100 yards. Would have got an extra 3 points there. Didn't bring in any TDs, but he's set up yet again. And Jacksonville's going to be without Minshew, so Glennon's going to be in. So Houston's probably going to get the ball more. They won't have to throw and catch up in the second half. So David Johnson at 5,600 definitely sparks my interest a whole lot. Melvin Gordon, Philip Lindsay, both are in really good spots here. They both have been producing, surprisingly, and they're in a favorable matchup against a terrible Atlanta defense, whose defense has improved, I'll say that, but they're still not a good defense at all. So both of those guys are set up for good games. I'd be okay with taking either one in GPPs. I wouldn't take him in cash just because you don't know Philip Lindsay can break out for a 40-yard touchdown run, or Melvin Gordon's just going to get the red zone look. So if you want to take that risk in a cash, go for it. But I would definitely feel confident of playing one of them in GPPs for sure. Le'Veon Bell, I talked about him. I'd be okay. Not with the 5,100 price point, but they have a really good matchup there. DeAndre Swift against Minnesota. I like DeAndre Swift's price. That's the only thing I like about him. He gets pretty consistent targets. You could look at it. It's usually around 4 or 5 targets a game. And his yards are pretty consistent there too. Somewhere around 19, 20 yards. He's hit a low. He's hit a high of 60. And then he gets touchdowns too. He's in a really good matchup, divisional game. 5,000, it's a really good price point, and if I need to spend down on a running back, he's one of the running backs I'm going to target. I'm going to stay away from most of the Chargers running backs, although if you are going to play a running back, it would be Justin Jackson, just because he's been getting the higher end of the carries, and he's been getting a decent amount of targets. But I still a team that I can't feel confident of picking a running back. Dobbins and Edwards. The Colts' defense should be phenomenal against the run. And we've seen Baltimore struggle against teams that stop the run. So I'm probably going to stay away from them as a whole. Devin Singletary playing against Seattle. With Moss in, it steals a lot of his volume. So 4,700, I mean, it's a pretty good price point for him. But with Moss in, like I said, it's just hard for me to feel confident playing him. That's for the most part it. The only other thing I do want to point out, I'll go to the game right now. Gaskin is going to be out for Miami, so we don't know who is going to be the running back. They just traded for Williams. He's not going to be in. Jordan Howard's probably going to be active for the game. Matt Breida is going to be in there too. If you want a pretty good steal, I would say Jordan Howard. I mean, you look at what he did before he got healthy scratched. He got a touchdown in the first 3 games. That's all he did was get the red zone rushes, and he got in there. Matt Breida, we saw him last year in San Francisco, what he was capable of doing. I don't know if he's capable of doing the same thing, but I feel like Miami's going to take it easy on Tua again, especially playing a pretty decent Arizona team. Like I said, they're not where they need to be, but they have so much potential. It's crazy. Both defenses are pretty balanced, I'd say, so I could just see Miami running the ball a lot. That's why I like Jordan Howard and Matt Breida at 4,000. Those are probably my value running backs of the week. So hope this video helped you guys. Definitely check out the showdown video I just posted. I'm going to upload this one shortly after, so check those videos out. Head over to Astrodfs. You see our articles that we post for the showdowns and main slate, and get your subscription. If you don't trust us, look at the results. We've put up some pretty good consistent numbers there too. You could definitely join our Discord there too. Both the links will be in the description down low. And I hope this video helped you guys a lot, and we will see you in the next one.